Hello and good morning, Kinaway community. Long time no see. I hope you're excited because it is webinar season yet again. Before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land on which I am coming to you all from, and I'd also like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land in which each and every one of us are tuning in from, and pay respects to elders past, present, and emerging. I'd also like to remind you all that Kinaway is still offering the usual forms of business support for our members and your families, which we'll get into in a hot second. So if you feel the need for any kind of assistance or support, please feel free to get in contact with us, the team here at Kinaway. So now that I have all of that out of the way, I am excited to welcome somebody that should be a familiar face to you, Brendan, our mental health and wellbeing clinician. Woo!
Morning, Tony.
Hello, Brendan. So I know that we have a couple new members since we were last here on the interwebs doing these webinars. So for those new members and to refresh everybody's minds, could you please introduce yourself, Brendan, because you'll do a better job than I will.
Sure. Good morning, everyone. Yeah, Brendan is my name. I'm the small business wellbeing consultant clinician that based here at Kinaway, the Indigenous Chamber of Commerce. The service that I'm involved with is purely a wellbeing service for the members of Kinaway, the small business owners, their staff and their families. My service is completely free, also private and confidential. Initially, we kicked off the service when COVID arrived. There were some business owners under a bit of stress and experiencing some anxiety, and that's why I based myself here just to have someone to talk to in regards to that sort of stuff and help them through any sort of difficult times. From day one, we've kept the message very clear, and that it is a direct phone number, 1-800-KINAWAY, comes directly through to me. And if you need to have a chat, which sometimes is all is needed, is just to have a quick chat about what's going on, and sometimes you can just feel a little bit better just by unloading for half an hour, and that's what I'm here for, is just to have a listen and help you through any difficulties as we go along and try and get back to what is regarded as the new normal.
Yay, that's a perfect segue into what today's webinar will be about. So I might just let Brendan take it away, but it's back to work well-being with the new COVID normal, which we've been living with for a couple of years now, which is kind of crazy to say. But I do think that it is pertinent to remind everybody. I'm excited to hear this webinar because, it's always good to be reminded of these tools and to be reminded of the service that Brendan provides, of which I also use, so highly recommend. So without further ado, let's get started. I'm going to just be chilling here listening because like I said, am keen. But I'm going to let Brendan run through the slides. If I could get the right slide up. Brendan, don't tell anybody.
No.
Beautiful. Take it away.
Good. All right. Thanks, Katani. Yeah, back to work well-being. It is an issue. So look, just a quick overview of what we'll go through. One of the first topics is emerging from lockdown. The challenges of reopening on well-being. Another one will be how to prepare mentally for the reopening in the new COVID environment, how to manage challenging interactions and de-escalate an angry person, offering support to others, well-being check-ins, the well-being of younger workers, strategies for dealing effectively with stress, tips to reintegrate post-lockdown, and of course, taking care of your well-being.
Brendan, before we get too into it, do you mind if you could tell me slide when you would like me to change the slide?
Yeah, you can go to the overview, which I just went through. Yep, and you can go to the next one. There we go. So Tamara Cavenet is a clinical psychologist and head of the Australian Psychological Society. And her quote is that we have never done this before. We have never emerged from a lockdown where we have actually had to consider coming out into an environment of risk. Basically, we're having to come to terms with living with daily case numbers, living with some form of mask wearing or rules or restrictions and vaccine requirements to do many things. So this is a completely different environment and different experience than we've ever had. And she also goes on to say that being aware of the challenges of reintegration before it begins is important for people's ability to cope. Next slide, please, Katani. So, emerging from lockdown, challenges of reopening on our well-being. So, as many are excited about the welcome and the easing of restrictions and businesses reopening under the state government's roadmap, for others, the return to normal is a cause for worry and anxiety. We are seeing a rise in the rates of people experiencing social anxiety in particular. An example is anxiety about going back into the public and back to work and worrying about an outside perception of you that you don't worry about when you're at home in that oversized t-shirt. There is also anxiety after so long in lockdown to not wanting to miss out on opportunities to work, to be social, but worrying about what to talk about, how to have conversations with colleagues, with friends, as habits of sociability may have deteriorated over lockdowns, causing people to lack the usual confidence to mix with others. Some people have described feelings of dread and overwhelm the moment reopening dates were revealed. Some might experience feelings around the pressure of needing to be social, to reclaim that time lost in lockdown. There can also be fears that it will be a struggle to get back into the rhythm of work and being social. Some people may be nervous about unlearning the routine of lockdown and experience anxiety around leaving it. You might experience the feeling like you're having to relearn how to exist in a work environment, be comfortable among a crowd on public transport, and just talk to people again. There is a level of anxiety that come into play when reintegrating back into society and work after lockdown and learning boundaries and keeping them in place, especially in terms of having to learn to say no. Some people describe feelings of uncertainty that the state may be hit in the future by another sudden lockdown. They describe it as a feeling that there's a cloud hanging over them. And at any second, a storm can come down and take everything from them again. Mental health experts have said the feeling of unease at resuming faster paced, busier lives will be common. Next slide, please, Katani. So, how to prepare mentally for reopening in the new COVID environment. We may be slowly getting back to normal as restrictions ease, but it will be a new normal for many small businesses, one that's likely to exist for some time. Simply acknowledging that this isn't going to be like business as usual and recognizing that is okay. If that is a source of stress, it's a good place to start. Spend some time with your staff, your team members, imagining and thinking about what it might be like for your business in the weeks and months ahead, and plan for different situations and scenarios. It's a technique that can help you gain a sense of power and a feeling of calm about something which, to a large extent, is beyond your control. You might have to have tough conversations or be ready to assert yourself around compliance with the new safety measures and dealing with difficult customers. Planning and practicing for this with your team can be really valuable. Next slide, please, Katani. Talking about preparing to have tough conversations, I'm going to take you through how to manage challenging interactions and de-escalate an angry or emotional person. Being able to manage these conversations will help you look after yourself at work. There's a lot of anxiety at the moment around enforcing vaccination, infection control, and social distancing, health directives, and interactions with people who may become angry or emotional. when you are enforcing the COVID safe rules and restrictions. So let's go through some steps. Step 1, validate how the person is feeling. The first step is to validate how the person is. It's about recognition, not agreeing with them, just identifying their strong emotion and validating it. It's important to highlight that this step might take time. You have not validated a person until they feel validated. So saying, I can see what you are really angry, I can see that you're really angry right now, might not be enough for them to be validated. You might need to continue to offer them validating comments in a calm tone until you notice a shift in their demeanor, from the visible agitation to relief at being heard. How a person behaves and how they feel are two different completely things. Completely different things. A person's actions might be right or wrong, but no one is right or wrong with how they feel. It's important to note that you don't have to agree with a person or their behavior to validate how they are feeling. It's merely about acknowledging that they have strong feelings and highlighting that you can see it and their feeling is valid, no matter how rational or irrational it might seem to you. Step 2 is don't make it about you. Remain calm. Don't take on their anger. Don't take it personally. Other people's anger, even if it is directed at you, it's not about you. It's about them. And it's about how they are feeling. Their anger is about their view of the situation. Even if the person's anger or other heightened emotion is directed at you, try not to take it personally and remain calm. This person may be having a terrible day or week or month or year, and you are the person who is copying that. Their anger is about them. It's not about you, so try not to take it personally. The third step is help the person to find options. There are always options. A person who is out of control still has options around how he or she chooses to act. Help them to explore what their options are. For example, you can say, now you have an option here. You can keep doing what you are doing, but there will be consequences. For example, you will be banned from the establishment, say, or you can choose to call it a night and go home, or you can walk away, no hard feelings, and try to enjoy the rest of your night. The fourth step, allow for choice. So people always have a choice in everything they do. Do not tell them what to do at this point. It's important for you to recognize their freedom of choice. Having autonomy to decide what to do can help to de-escalate their fight or flight response. Now, this can help them feel emotionally safe enough to identify that they have potentially overreacted and for them to back down without losing face. This step is crucial. It is important that you do not take the person's autonomy away. People have the right to choose what they do, and if you force their hand at this point, you could escalate them again. By giving the person the opportunity to decide how they respond, you can help to reduce their fight or flight response, because often this fight or flight response is triggered because the person feels like their choices have been taken away from them and they feel backed into a corner. Step 5 is to control your emotions. Humans naturally pick up on other people's emotions and mirror these emotions. Don't let your ego control your response. You do not have to prove you are right. Again, don't take things personally. Don't use extreme language. For example, words like never and always and can't stand it. Extreme language feeds extreme feelings like anger. Be mindful about how your body is feeling. Recognize that the anger is not, in fact, your anger, but it is a projection of the person in front of you. Don't feel the need to be right. If a person is disagreeing with you or spouting something that you do not agree with, you do not need to argue your point. You do not need to be right. This is your ego driving you. Recognize it and resist the urge to argue your point just to win. Now, again, do not take things personally. In the case of a customer, they most likely do not know you. Therefore, how can their anger be personal? It's not about you. It's about them. Be mindful of how you're feeling physically and ask yourself, and ask yourself, could your irritation and anger be stemming from something else? Is it possible your reaction doesn't match the situation? Are you hungry? Are you overtired, stressed out, or do you have a headache and more irritable because of that? Next slide, please, Katani.
Shall do. I love that slide. It's so interesting because I think it's that all of that was so good to remember for when you're dealing with someone who's emotional, like, or trying to communicate, but also if you're the emotional one. And I love that. And being like self-reflective in that
I've learned
moment.
over the journey that when someone does say something or behaves in a certain way or whatever, and I'm in their vicinity, I immediately go to the thought that this says more about them than it does about me.
Yeah. And like the thing that came up in my mind while listening to you is like, if I am someone who's having an emotional moment, and it is because of something else, to think like, okay, well, if I was in that person's shoes, I would hope that even in my emotional state, like, I can still communicate. I find it just super interesting, and I think I'm going to clip that part, Brendan, and put it on.
Oh, clip away, Katani. Clip away. Very good. Okay, so we forge on. I'll just have a quick drink. Offering support to others. Wellbeing check-ins. So regular wellbeing check-ins are an important part of a mentally healthy workplace. We all play a role in fostering and maintaining a supportive work environment. Wellbeing check-ins are especially important after any incidents or conflicts in the workplace, such as after a difficult conversation or challenging encounter with a customer, a member of the public, or another team member. And a wellbeing check-in can be as easy as asking the person, "Are you okay?" So let's go through how to offer support to others by using the Are You OK simple 4-step conversation guide. So step 1, ask, are you okay? So be relaxed, friendly, and concerned in your approach. Help them open up by asking questions like, how are you going? Or what's been happening? Or after a difficult conversation or conflict, saying something like, I noticed you seem upset after that difficult interaction. How are you traveling? Mention specific things that that have made you concerned for them, like you seem less chatty than usual. How are you going? If they don't want to talk, you could say, please call or come to see me if you ever want to have a chat. Or is there someone else you'd rather have a talk to? So after the first step, step 2 is listen with an open mind. So take what they say seriously and don't interrupt or rush the conversation. Excuse me. Don't judge their experiences or reactions, but acknowledge that things seem tough for them. If they need time to think, sit patiently with the silence. Encourage them to explain by asking them, how are you feeling about that? Or how long have you felt that way? Show that you've listened by repeating back what you've heard, like in your own words, and ask, if you have understood them properly. The third step is to encourage action. So ask, how would you like me to support you? Or what's something you can do for yourself right now? Something that's enjoyable or relaxing. If possible, invite the person to take a short break from work. Go for a cuppa. Take a few minutes to regather thoughts and calm emotions. You could say, when I was going through a difficult time or felt distressed after a challenging interaction with a customer, I tried this. You might find it useful too. If they've been feeling really down or anxious for more than 2 weeks, encourage them to see a GP for a mental health check. You could say it might be useful to link in with someone who can support you. I'm happy to assist you to find the right person to talk to. Be positive about the role of professionals in getting through tough times. And the last step, the check-in. Pop a reminder in your diary to call or catch up with the person in a couple of days or a week if they're really struggling, and follow up with them sooner if they are struggling, even at the end of the day or the shift. You could say, look, I've been thinking about you, wanted to know how you're going since we chatted, and stay in touch and be there for them. Genuine care and concern can make a real difference. Next slide, please, Katani. Thank you. Doing a great job. The well-being of younger workers. Okay, so when it comes to the well-being of younger workers, your staff and co-workers, it's essential to have supports in place and foster an environment where young workers can feel safe to be able to talk about their struggles with someone at work. Offering regular well-being check-ins and one-on-one meetings with all staff, but especially younger workers, to ask them, "Are you okay?" is recommended, along with having information about mental health and well-being available to them in the workplace. 1-800 Kinaway, and developing personal well-being plans will support them. Employers should be aware that young people, particularly those entering the workforce for the first time, are at heightened risk of mental illness compared to previous generations. So research has found that over the last decade, workers aged under 25 years have begun reporting worse mental health symptoms, and that this has spiked during the COVID period for those aged between 18 to 34. In the past 2 years, the difference we've seen in the mental health of young people in the workforce is striking. Around 15% were reporting high levels of psychological distress in 2017. Now, that figure has doubled to 30% during the pandemic. Next slide, please, Katani. So, taking care of your well-being starts with awareness around your self-care. These questions can be used to help create a personal well-being plan for yourself, or used with a staff or team member. So you ask, what can I do right now that will help me in this moment? What can I control? What's most important to me to focus on right now? What small step can I take today to improve my well-being? What is giving energy to me? What can I let go of is a good one. What am I grateful for is another excellent one. And who can I help? Next, please, Tony. Strategies for dealing effectively with stress. So as our economy reopens, some businesses will face pressures such as understaffing issues and staff having to work longer hours. Stress and energy management will be a key to maintaining well-being and getting through this transition period. It's important to remember that stress is more than just feeling overworked. At times, when we become so accustomed to feeling high levels of stress, we are often unaware of, or may not even know that what it feels like to be relaxed. It is helpful to develop a range of responses to stress. Luckily, there are some tried and true strategies for dealing effectively with stress that shows up in our lives. So, number one is recharge activities. When we get stressed and maybe working too much or long hours, we often stop making time for things that are nourishing, satisfying, and refreshing to do. Examples of recharge activities could be practicing meditation or deep breathing, going for a walk to unwind, taking a hot bath at the end of a long day, enjoying a healthy meal, or talking to a friend. Daily routines are important. The human mind likes predictability and certainty. When life gets stressful and chaotic, we can restore some order to the chaos by ensuring that we continue with simple daily routines. Another strategy, circles of concern and influence. So the problems, issues, and difficulties we face generally fall into two circles. The circle of concern contains things over which we have little direct control, and the circle of influence contains those concerns that you can actually do something about. Focus on making changes in that circle. The fourth strategy is reality check. Stress has a large thinking component, and certain types of thinking are likely to trigger stress and or make your stress worse. For example, the catastrophizing, all or nothing, thing or black and white thinking, or over generalizing. is just a few unhelpful thinking patterns that can cause additional stress and anxiety. Thought challenging is a useful strategy to ensure the way that you are thinking about a situation, be it work or personal, is more balanced and realistic and helpful. So challenge those unhelpful thoughts. Thanks, Tony. So to wrap things up, and when it comes to supporting your well-being as we reopen, here are a few tips and things to be aware of to help you reintegrate post-lockdown. Beware of doing many things too quickly. You might end up being overstimulated. Expect a honeymoon phase followed by a dip in energy before finding a new normal. Consider other people's boundaries when making plans. Not everyone will feel comfortable meeting in groups or indoors yet. I struck that the other day. Haven't seen a mate for a while, and we've been messaging about catching up, and he just actually said in one text, look, I'm just not ready yet. I'm not interested in going to a pub for a beer with all the cases still going on. So, you just need to be mindful of that and appreciate and accept that that's how he's feeling at the moment. Don't abandon the productive habits you've picked up in lockdown altogether. Talk about because working from home has actually worked for some people. It's helped them get into a routine, and try not to give up too many of those good habits that you've picked up. Talk about your experience and feelings with others. Everyone will be having a reaction of some type, and it's normal. Seek out formal advice on how to navigate difficult conversations with others. For example, customers and members of the public, staff, colleagues, family, and or friends. I'll leave you today. Have we got the next one up, Tony? Yep. Okay, so I'll leave you today with this quote from an article published on the conversation.com website. While there are uncertainties about our future, there is one thing we are certain of. The higher our fully vaccinated coverage goes, above 80%, the easier it will be to control COVID, enabling a return to a COVID normal life. So that is basically it, Katani. So the message, hopefully some tips have been picked up on how to deal with other people and getting back to the new normal. But again, I just wanted to reiterate that the service that we're providing at Kinaway for people's well-being is available at 1-800-KINAWAY. Brendan will pick up the phone and say hello. Always happy to have a chat to anybody. And as I said, business owners, it's not just you guys, it's for your families, it's for your staff. And it is free and completely private and confidential. So keep that in mind. And if you have noticed any of your staff or family members with their well-being look like it's deteriorating at all, you can give them the 1-800-KINAWAY, and I'd be happy to have a chat to them. That's about it, Katani.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Brendan. I was really enjoying listening to that one, and I think you've actually given me some ideas for things that I can share with the community on our socials. Some of those tips and tricks we'll, reiterate there, and for some of the tools that I know that you like to mention, maybe we can do some videos showing and explaining that. So I am looking forward to that. Thank you, Brendan.
Thanks, Katani. It's been a pleasure.
Let me get into my spiel, all right? Because it's definitely better how I've written it rather than how my brain is going to try and say it. So I would like to thank everybody who joined us today, and a special thanks to the man right in front of you, Brendan Heed, our mental health and wellbeing clinician, who is available, like he's mentioned, at 1-800-KINAWAY, just down there. I hope that you have all enjoyed it and feel a little bit more prepared to, return back to the workplace, or just to sort of keep up your good habits that you did pick up. All of the things, I'm not going to reiterate all of the things Brendan just mentioned. And again, if you'd like to catch up on webinars like this one, or any of the previous yarns we've had, feel free to jump on the Kinaway Facebook, our LinkedIn, or our YouTube. YouTube is really good for that. It's like a video archive of all of our webinars.
Yep.
Also, you can look forward to there being a webinar every week. We are in webinar season, aren't we, Brendan?
Yes, we are.
Everybody's got to prepare to see this mug a little bit more often. And yes, like we've said a couple times, it's good to just remind everybody, if you want to speak to Brendan, if you need support or your family needs support or your staff, Brendan is free and confidential, contactable at the number below. And that draws us to a close. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Brendan, for taking time out.
Thanks, Katani.
Have a good weekend, everybody. Have a good Friday.
Yep,
we'll see
you
you
too.
again soon. Bye.